Now, you're gonna have to forgive me because I'm kind of reading off a script right now. But I'm making it up for you by doing some basic improvisation. While I talk, because I don't believe that musicians on YouTube or any other social media, whenever they're talking about stuff, whether it's gear reviews or anything, they just talk and do barely any actual music and demonstration. So anyway, let me start reading from the script. So, I admit that just like every other guitarist, I'm actually very poor at reading music. I don't practice enough, my oral skills are lacking too, but I know that I'm not a bad guitarist, and why is that? Well, because there's no benefit in being complacent with mediocrity, and you should strive to be better. But in contrast, there's also no benefit in perfectionism. Anyway, so I was very obsessed for a long time with trying to become a virtuoso, not just on guitar, but also on piano. And I gave up on that dream, and ironically, I think I'm actually closer to reaching those heights. So, what it comes down to relates to something that I never shut up about, is that music is a language. So the best thing isn't to know the definition of all the words in the dictionary, which is ironic, because I actually published a set of books called The Musician's Dictionary, links in the description, but you just need to be able to say what you want to say when you want to say it. So, have you ever met that guy, or have you ever been that guy, who says something in a group setting and it makes you cringe? And really, it's just because whoever said it out of context or character. Now, think about like that comedian Jimmy Carr. He said some things that, like, if someone else said it, being out of character, or if it's at the wrong time and place, out of context, they could get arrested. I could be wrong, but I assume he actually doesn't really know much about, like, medicine, quantum mechanics, Chinese philosophy, music theory, linguistics, or a lot of other useful stuff. The fact of the matter is that he puts his limited knowledge to good use. In fact, most comedians are already telling you blatantly obvious stuff that you already know, but their presentation is so unexpected and nuanced that you still find it funny and more insightful than before. So, what's the point I'm making? Well, as musicians and artists, we don't have to worry about knowing it all and being able to play it all. Working with what you've got and building on that, you can work on stuff you can't do as well and build on that. But trying to be perfect and complete is impossible, so you really do have to give up on that, unless you want to live a miserable life of endless frustration, self-loathing, and regret. Being perfect is impossible, so trying to be perfect is actually stupid and detaches you from external reality, the real world, and internal reality, your identity and personality. And it breaks the bridge between the two. So instead, you have to stay grounded in external reality by experiencing music instead of analyzing it. Embrace internal reality by discovering who and why you are, and cultivating how you can understand yourself, grow, and express that identity, and to bridge both of those realities by expressing it and communicating honestly Not just in your music, but in your way of life. So, trying to play other people's pieces perfectly, obsessing over perfect technique and timing, comparing yourself to others and vice versa, putting yourself down, it's all irrelevant, and despite your strongest convictions, it's completely unrealistic. So do yourself a favor, stop living in a fake made-up world that consistently disappoints you when you're faced with the reality that your potential doesn't lie in these nonsense expectations. So how do you do this? And I'm glad you asked. It's the most straightforward thing, and personally I'm enraged how everyone in the world is so oblivious to this. I'll say it for the 100th time, music is a language, so be articulate. So someone can be like the ugliest, lousiest guy, kinda like me, right? But very attractive to some women. Now why? Well, number one is those guys know how to communicate, and number two, women who fall for low-quality guys are gullible. And the same goes for your music. Most modern people do not understand a thing about music because they're accustomed to and conditioned to the brain rot of commercial entertainment and the ambiguous hypocrisy of modern values. Combined with modernity's emphasis on hyper-individualism, you have a significant edge where you can make almost any mistake in the world and people will still think you're great because they're conditioned to worship anybody holding a guitar. Now, yes, if they're impressed by someone playing Wonderball, they are objectively wrong when they assume that person is a talented musician. But don't use their opinion to validate reality. Instead, you can just rest assured that people are so oblivious to the mistakes that you make along the way of exploring and cultivating your identity and expression that no one can stand in your way. On the contrary, you have naysayers as well, like every video on social media insisting, you're doing this wrong, or this is why you suck at guitar, or whatever. How do you handle their opinions? Just remember that they're projecting. And if they're projecting, that already means you're more realistic than them. So what does it come down to? Being realistic and articulate. The most random guy in the world with no clear indication on what his favourite movie or band is, what scene he's a part of, what his fashion sense is or whatever, can be the most captivating person you've ever met purely because he's well spoken. Either he's giving a speech or talking to you personally, and you relate to every word coming out of his mouth because he knows how and why he's saying it, and how it relates to the character and context of the setting and identity of him and the audience. So, on that note, subscribe if you want to be a more realistic and articulate musician, because that's what every single video on my channel is about, whether it's implicitly or explicitly. And here's a bonus tip. It's twofold. If you're the type of person who always talks themselves up, like me, put yourself down occasionally. Don't make it your entire identity, but humble yourself sometimes, like I did at the start of the video by admitting my flaws. On the other hand, if you're always being negative and putting yourself down, start to boast on occasion. I know you might feel like you're being arrogant, but if you do this sparingly, even jokingly, you'll get some confidence, become more charismatic, and able to balance your strengths and weaknesses. So please, work on not being someone who can do everything, but can do the right thing at the right time, whether it's musically or in just your way of being. It's not about all the fancy technical stuff. It's about knowing how and why and what you're saying at any time and how that all interacts.